Good morning. This is Michael David Cobb Bowen. How you doing? I'm responding to some of the recent comments that I got from my last few posts at Stoic Observations. And first of all, I want to thank all of my readers, um, hundreds of you who have been reading up on my stuff and sending me pleasant notes. Um, I am really encouraged as a writer, as long as I've been doing this, by the kind of compliments and insights that I've been getting from you um, in the past few weeks. It's been really good. In response to FF and several others, I wanted to give you a little bit of an idea of what I'm like outside of my writing and where I'm coming from. Um, every time I start a biography, I generally start in Oceanside, California, where I was born, in the Naval Hospital off of Camp Pendleton. But I find that makes me ramble. So I'm going to talk about things that I've done basically in the past 10 years, and with some stuff that goes back a little bit. So this is the context of what I'm writing about now, and gives you some idea of my projects and where you might be able to expect me to go next. So first of all, it should be known that in 2003, I was working on two projects, one called Vision Circle and the other called Cobb. Cobb being my second middle name, from the Cobb family of, where are they from? New England. Um, Vision Circle was a collaborative effort between myself and four other gentlemen, and we were looking at basically, black current affairs. And we did it from a progressive standpoint, and I hedged that so that I would take a disconfirmationary role from the conventional wisdom. I had been doing race man stuff for some time, and that comes from um, a very early recognition of what I now call black diversity, which is to say, I had inherited a certain amount of prerogatives as a member of the talented 10th, third generation college education, in some political or intellectual vanguard of African America. Um, and that's interesting stuff, but not so interesting as it used to be. So the Vision Circle was myself, uh, another technical person, an academician. Those were the primary three of us, and a couple others who were known from way back in the late '90s at SCAA. SCAA was the Usenet Group Soap Culture African American, of which I was a fact keeper. And that all of this is content that's still available. So if you actually want to dig down and cancel me, you'll find plenty of good materials there, where I will have said things that contradict what I'm saying today. The Conservative Brotherhood I started in around 2004, as I declared myself conservative and Republican, and did the Black Republican thing. That was good, and I learned everything I needed to know about the American right by practicing it. This got me a berth on NPR's Barbershop with Jimmy Israel and Tell Me More with Michelle. I don't know why I'm blanking, but anyway, that was a about a year and a half that I did the barbershop as a regular, and that was good too. As the Conservative Brotherhood went through its life cycle, of black conservative bloggers in the blogosphere, and the blogosphere became less influential, I went on to move COB into a nonpartisan kind of thing. I won Black Blogger of the Year in 2007, owing to my coverage of the Obama campaign. And at the election of Obama, I recognized a lot of things, but basically the rise of identity politics, the machinations of political campaign policy and money, and the role that a less comprehensively investigative journalism was affecting our country, and basically a kind of confirmation in my own way of what I heard explained by Chomsky in terms of manufacturing consent. So I think we're deeply into a state of manufactured consent in the United States, and that is one of the things that has augured against my participation as an activist of any sort, despite the values and virtues that I think we should have in the political sphere, in the public sphere. So I continue, but just not as a political partisan or as an ideologue. At Cobb, I then, again, which is still standing, around 2008, of course, we had the Great Recession, and I had seen some aspect of that coming, owing to my readings of Nassim Taleb and the Super Forecaster guy. So I had joined the Long Now Foundation a few years before, and I can recall specific turning points in which I said my own participation in a kind of virtue signaling affluent class person was useless. And so I ditched it. And at that point, I got rid of the 7 Series BMW and found myself a Toyota truck, FJ, which I still have. I then started looking at an idea of the Peasant Theory. So basically, I said the middle class of America is broken. And in contradiction to this 1%, but in building upon that basic idea, I came up with a functional definition of class, in which 85% of America is actually peasants. Because, well, we can go into that, but basically, around 2008, 2009, that was the impetus for me to believe that the idea that the American middle class was as powerful and influential as people thought was wrong. That we are mostly peasants, and there is a genius class amongst us, which is the largest in the world, and therefore very significant. And there is some bleed over. There are brilliant peasants, and I consider myself in the peasantry, but in the part that could be in the genius class. And the effectiveness of the meritocracy of America is degraded because of lack of leadership from the ruling class. And there are alternative genius classes, and we're squabbling over who should be ascendant. And that's mostly a political battle that we drag the peasant classes along with us, but that is kind of broken even as I speak. Since I'm fundamentally an engineer in the big data area, there's always been something a bit mysterious about the arts and the humanities. And so I went after that. And by the time I completed my ideas about the Peasant Theory and applied it, which I continue to, I think I demystified the whole thing, at least as far as my curiosity was concerned. So I began my martial education. I said, what did I not learn? I learned how to think rationally and be an engineer, and I learned how to write rationally and be a cultural producer, influencer, whatever you want to call it. What did I not do? What I did not learn was how to march, how to use a rifle, how to be a soldier, and how to take care of my body such that it is a purposeful instrument of will, rather than just something that I show off in a man bikini or whatever it is that I would wear to show off that I'm healthy and strong. So my martial education began with a series of internships, as it were. I started with the local fire department, and I learned the CPR and first aid and all the procedures for that, including ISO and command procedures for incidents. And I was part of that neighborhood watch kind of thing. At the time, of course, I was also involved with the Boy Scouts, and there were a lot of first responders in that contingent. At the recommendation of one of my instructors, I joined the police Citizens Academy, and that too was a 16-week course in which I learned all the departments of the local police department, talked with cops, their leadership, understood their procedures, what is real and what is not real about the criminal justice system, and education about that in terms of who gets into police departments and who does not, and then what skills are leveraged in the police departments. Budgetary, legal, that kind of thing. Thirdly, I went to the FBI Citizens Academy and learned how that organization works and its perspective on its mission. And of course, met with a great number of agents and listened to them lecture. In addition, of course, and all in my 50s, I began with my own personal changes: diet, circuit training, taekwondo, some martial arts training under Crafty Dog of the Dog Brothers. Did a go ruck and ruck march, and I also learned how to operate pistols in combat pistol shooting. So I rounded out what I've just written about rough intelligence, and satisfied a great number of things that had come to me naturally as the oldest of four brothers and a man's man in my neighborhood where I grew up, and just common sense. So I think that's definitely been influential on my thought. I joined with several people, including my best friend, Mark Danziger, to form Rights Universal, which is a limping along charity that focuses on LGBT issues in Africa and Southeast Asia. Have a hard time getting attention of the American upper middle class and philosophical organizations, but I suppose at some point, if my notoriety gets large enough, then I can have more influence. Also with Mark, I've been doing American WAG. And American WAG is a kind of lighthearted seriousness about people my age and how we think. And I suppose I'm thinking counter-boomer is an interesting way to say what American WAG's about. but it is mostly video and audio based. So if you want to see me talking more this way. Some older works that still are around there, which might be of interest, are my building of the Race Man's Home Companion. And that is a much older project, which is moribund right now. But basically, the fundamental idea on that was to do at a very high level what critical race theory has successfully done, which is, except mine was not to brainwash everyone the same way, but to inform people all the same way. And yeah, so that's out there. Prior to that was Buhab's Factotum, which was when I was working in the mode of Cornel West's vision of provocation and spiking racial topics at all times. But this was all prior to 2003. Most recently is my Stoic journey, which is basically the study of Stoicism. I flirted with empiricism, or excuse me, Epicurean, the Epicurean thought, because I am a foodie. And the Stoic journey is theoretically done. I understand Stoicism, and I'm putting it in the context of other things. So in collaboration with LA Stoics and Mr. Kitchen, I've also joined up with the local IDW, but the pandemic over the past year has limited our discussions, and the online stuff is not so interesting to me because I don't have the bandwidth to get through it. Just reading all of the things that are interesting takes too much time. Also, I've been engaged with local hackers and hacker spaces here in Los Angeles County, on and off over the past 5 years. What's next is the growth of Stoic observations on... Thank you, Yuri. The growth of Stoic observations on Substack. I want to grow my readership. I will continue to be working on my autobiography and on my sci-fi novel, which is awesome. I think I'll put up the first chapter of the sci-fi novel, so you can do that. I still, it's a little bit of a cheat because my Patreon people got that and they paid for it. But I've encouraged people to be at Substack, and maybe next year is when I'll begin charging. And I'm also journeying into discovery for music, and continuing for humor. Also, I'm interested in what I'll just call the new mythology, and the new mythology is, well, I'll just leave it at that. The new mythology. It has something to do with this. How do we in the West keep myths alive? And I mean good myths rather than the pet dimensions of our demography. And I'm always interested now in hi-fi, audiophilia, and motorsports, and combat sports, because all of these things are empirical. They're real. There's practice behind the theory, and so that's where I'm on about pretty much. The one thing I wanted to mention is I'll be talking about first, second, and third order epistemics. I think that's a brilliant idea that I've just recently learned, and I'm also moving towards mindfulness and meditation. So that's an overview of where I've been in the past several years and the context from which my writing comes. I think that should suffice. Thanks for listening.